Hello, everybody. So it is not often that when you tune into the Pointing It Out podcast on YouTube, where you have found us, that you see two faces on one screen.
We're here.
There's no split screen, which just makes this so much more fun, I have to say, for me. And I hope it will be more fun for
Me. Yes,
my
definitely.
pal, Lucy.
Hello.
Who is here in St. Louis, actually, for a retreat that we're doing here at the Needlepoint Clubhouse. So let me start back at the beginning. So my name is Megan. If you are just finding us here on YouTube, you have found the Pointing It Out podcast channel here on YouTube, where we talk about all things needlepoint all the time. And together with my friend Melissa, who is the owner of the Wool and the Floss up in Grosse Pointe, Michigan. I'm sorry, it's early still here, you guys, and I'm taking a minute to just get my head together. My friend, Melissa McLeod, up in Grosse Pointe, Michigan at the Wool and the Floss. She and I created this podcast. It's been years now, which is wild to say.
It's so fun.
It is fun. And I am delighted to say that I'm here with Lucy Millet
Yep.
of Mopsey Designs.
Yes.
So you have you may recognize her. Lucy is pretty active on Instagram, and I don't know, you're around. You put your face out there.
Face and glasses.
And glasses. I will tell you, when Lucy arrived yesterday, she had a different pair of glasses on.
I did. Yes.
So she, as we now know, wardrobes with
I wardrobe with glasses. I think I have 8 pairs of glasses.
Oh, I love that. That's
but these
so
are the
fun.
OGs, so people know me by the green
Is
glasses.
that right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's kind of like Al Roker. Doesn't he do like blue? Now you have the green.
Yeah.
So anyway. Okay, so we're here with Lucy, and I am really excited to just sort of talk through like Lucy's journey. So how you got into needlepoint and all the things. So first, I know this. I know that you, when you started your business, you were living in Austin, Texas, right?
Yes.
And now you live in
Saco, Maine.
Saco. I don't know. How do you spell that?
SACO.
Well, it's kind of like Waco, Texas,
right?
But
Saco.
Waco.
Yes. So just south of Portland, Maine.
Okay. So I have never been to Maine, so I don't
visit.
Have any idea where that is.
Come visit. We're southern coast, so we're right on the beach.
Oh my God.
I can take a beach walk before or after work.
Oh my God.
It's beautiful. Get out on the boat. The winter is beautiful too. Beach walks in the winter are very cool.
And when you say we, Lucy lives with her partner, Jess.
Yes.
And her 2 pups.
Yes.
I forgot their names, but they're cute.
Tazo and Bauer.
And I asked her if that was Tazo for tea, and you said yes, because are you a tea drinker?
I'm a tea drinker, but Tazo also means fresh in Greek.
Oh.
And he was a rescue, and we both needed a fresh start. So that's
I love that. Well, maybe later Lucy will post some pics of her pups if you are pup people, because they are darling. And the other fun fact is that one of your dogs is a bird dog, right?
Yes.
So Jess
is trained to hunt birds.
I think that's so fun. I love that. I love when our little pets can find a way to connect with us other than just being our little snuggle buddies.
He's such a couch potato most of the time, and then you put him on birds and he's crazy.
Love that. So you did not grow up in either Austin or Maine.
I didn't.
So let's talk about where you grew up.
I grew up in really northern New Hampshire in a tiny town. Tiny town. I grew up with the same 12 kids in my class, K through 6th grade.
That's awesome.
Tiny.
Do you still talk to any of those 12 kids, or did you have enough of them?
It was enough. Time to move on.
I'll be honest, I don't have a lot of high school friends that I still am in touch with, but I'm always amazed at those people who are like, yeah, like my best friend from grade school was in my wedding. And I'm like, well, that's cool.
That's cool, but not
not you or me.
And then we moved south to the big city of Norwich, Vermont when I was in 8th grade.
Wait a second, a town I've never heard of was the big city?
Yeah.
Also, exposing my lack of geographical knowledge of the Northeast. So sorry about it. But anyway, so Norwich, Connecticut.
Norwich, Vermont.
Oh, excuse me.
So I moved from New Hampshire to Vermont. So I am a northern New England gal. So moving back to Maine was kind of moving home.
Made your heart sing a little bit.
Yeah.
So you what I know is so first of all, Lucy and I have met multiple times at market. But the truth is, at market, you really don't have a chance to sit down and get to know someone.
Moving a mile a minute.
Yes. And you're just kind of like going and you're like, hi, how are you? And you kind of do that quick, like, how are the kids? How is the wife or the husband or the whoever.
Mhm.
And then you just sort of like, okay, great to see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So we actually had the opportunity to have dinner last night. And so I got a chance to kind of get a little more
Mhm.
information about, well, information. That sounds, get to know you a little.
Yeah, we just had like real friend time.
That's exactly right. And so so what I was getting at is I know that you grew up in the Northeast and that but I know you spent some time in Boston. So talk us through your like, so you grew up in, say it again, I just missed it, Norwich.
Yeah.
And then you went to college.
I went to college in upstate New York.
Okay. And then
And the kind of natural progression just to be close to my family and near some friends was to move to Boston.
great city.
So I moved to Boston and I lived in Boston for 8 years.
Oh my gosh.
And moved kind of around Boston, lived in Cambridge, Jamaica Plain. And in that natural progression of moving to Boston, I went back to school. I studied large scale printmaking
Undergraduate.
undergrad.
Oh my gosh, how cool.
And was working in studios and loved it, but I didn't feel as though I was connecting with people. Like I spent a lot of time with my head down. I spent a lot of time with very few people putting pretty art on people's walls, which was amazing, but I wasn't connecting with people through art.
Can I tease that out just a second?
Yeah.
So large scale printmaking, is that when an artist creates a piece and then you blow it up? Or are you like doing graphic design on the computer and printing it large
So
scale?
the way
or like
I do silk screen printmaking is really old school. I still hand drew everything.
okay.
So every layer of color was a different drawing on
Okay.
top of each other. And then once they're printed, the colors mix. So
So you were literally using like a printing
a light
it a-
table and drawing everything and then using silk screen
okay.
printmaking processes and pulling prints.
Oh, how cool.
Mhm.
And then so that was your art, or were you doing that sort of licensed by another company, or how did that?
That was my art. That's how I was creating art. And then I also worked for an artist. So taking his work and pulling his prints for him.
Oh, cool. And
Yeah.
then people would come to a gallery and then purchase them,
Mhm.
and you might still see some of your art on people's walls these
Mhm.
days. How
Mhm.
cool is that?
Yeah.
Do you know anyone that owns any of your art?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
So you
it's
can
fun.
actually see it.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
You're gonna have to share with us some photos of some
I
of your,
will.
yeah,
But
I would love to see that.
also, a little sneak peek is that some of my prints that I did personally are coming to Needlepoint this fall.
Yay.
So I have
Oh, how
worked to
fun.
transfer my prints into Needlepoint.
And what I know of printmaking is it a repetitive pattern or no? Like
It
you do
can
like
be.
one section and then you kind of repeat that, or
It can be. Mine were like a few feet by a few feet and just kind of one large image, but you could do, a repeating textile pattern.
very cool.
Mhm.
So you said printmaking is cool. I like this.
I like this,
but
but
I'm
I'm
gonna
not connecting with people. And so I went back to school for art therapy.
I don't think I knew that part of
Yeah.
the story.
So I went and I got a master's in art therapy and certified as a therapist and an art therapist, and worked in the therapy world for about 5 years.
So when you do something like that, are you licensed as a pediatric or a geriatric, or are you just sort of like able to work with any part of the population, or how does that work?
Under your license, you can work with any part of the population. Most people then take an interest or a specialization in some part of the population, whether that's children or seniors or adolescents or oncology. I specialized in eating disorders, mostly with adolescents and adults.
Oh, interesting. And so were you employed then by?
I was employed, I worked for a treatment facility in Boston
Oh, wow.
for folks struggling with eating disorders and seeking treatment. So they would come all day, 9 to 5, and we'd do meals and groups and individual sessions and art therapy sessions. And
So then you were putting together programs for people to use art to express themselves and understand more of the underlying reasons why they were struggling with whatever they were struggling with.
exactly.
How fascinating. I
Yeah.
love that. That's very cool. So my guess is, and this is unfair, but my guess is that took a real toll.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
that's hard
I
to
was
take on.
exhausted.
Yes.
I loved it. I do miss it. I since leaving, but I burnt out really quickly. I was working about 80 hours a week and just giving everything I had to this, which I think is expected, but takes a toll.
Sure.
So when COVID hit and therapy moved to Zoom, I was not good, and I'll own that I was not great at setting the boundaries, changing laundry between sessions, having the dogs bark, things like that. So that was kind of my moment to take a step back and reevaluate and decide if this was something I could really hold myself accountable to setting boundaries and taking care of myself while taking care of other people, or if I needed to step away. And the ultimate decision was to step away.
You know, I hadn't thought about, so teachers I know had a really hard time, I think, with teaching, but it didn't occur to me the therapy world was really hard hit by the pandemic. Yeah, that's an interesting thing to think about. So I appreciate you sharing that. So what didn't take a hit during the pandemic
was my stitching
and needlepoint in general.
No, needlepoint in general took, thank gosh, honestly, I think COVID actually did such a wonderful service to the needlepoint world, because like this kind of sleepy craft
woke up
woke up like to has such a resurgence.
For sure. So you are taking a step back. You're thinking, I need to take care of myself. So do you pick, okay, so first of all, you learned to needlepoint at a younger age?
So we'll go way back.
Okay.
I was taught to stitch at 6.
Oh my gosh.
So I've been stitching for almost 3 decades.
By who?
By Mopsey.
By grammar.
By Mopsey. My great grandmother Mopsey was a wonderful person. She lived on Nantucket Island by herself year round until she died on the island at 98.
Oh,
total like
beach girl.
Just a wonderful person. The whole island knew her as Mopsy. She designed and painted needlepoint. And
so would she have worked, hold on, I'm gonna get my stories confused here. Is Nantucket Erica Wilson?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So she was like a secret designer and painter for Erica Wilson back in the day. And she taught me to stitch when we were visiting over the summer. We would visit her every summer for about a month. And she taught me to stitch when I was really little. And so every time we visited her, I would needlepoint with her and she would paint me something.
How cool.
On 10 mesh canvas. And so she started my love of needlepoint. And my stitching has ebbed and flowed. It has come when I've really needed it. And then in times like in high school, I wasn't stitching as much.
Well, okay, we're going to get back to you picking up your stitching back in the pandemic, but Lucy just mentioned high school. I learned one of the coolest things about Lucy, and I will go out and say her parents. So what happened in high school? Your parents chose, was it high school or was it grade school? I'm sorry.
Grade
school. Lucy's parents, they have this opportunity and they say to themselves, you know, let's go to Europe.
Yeah.
Right.
Our parents are really cool people. Love them wonderfully. They have given us incredible experiences. So when I was in 4th grade, I was in 4th grade. My younger brother was in 1st grade. My parents decided that we were going to Europe, and not going to Europe for summer break. We were going to Europe for the year. And so
isn't that amazing?
My mom worked with the state to have all the curriculum sent to homeschool us. So I was homeschooled for the year and we traveled Europe. So we didn't stay in one place longer than 2 weeks. This was before Airbnb. So I don't know how my parents did it.
Like navigated that, you know,
This
even
was
the internet was kind of like
age of internet cafes. So we would all like huddle into an internet cafe while my parents found the next stop.
That's so cool.
It was a gift I will never be able to thank them enough for.
No kidding.
Just the eye-opening experiences, the moments that I had to play on the playground with kids who didn't speak my language. The whole thing, I learned so much. My family is closer because of it. It was a gift. It was a gift.
That's amazing. So you are able to kind of have, so now, do you remember whether you were trying to needlepoint when you were kind of like on the road with your family?
I lived out of the smallest suitcase.
Oh,
like Jack and I, my brother Jack and I, we each had a Razor scooter, which we were gifted before going on this trip. Razor scooters had just come out. And they saved us because my, brother's those 7-year-old legs, we could move faster.
You'd be on like
through
cobblestone
cities.
street.
So we had a rolly suitcase that I swear was like this big by this big. We had 3 outfits and our Razor scooter, and we were responsible for carrying our own things. So like we had to be able to carry our suitcase and carry our Razor scooter and put a backpack on our back. So not much needlepoint happened when we were traveling because like where would it have gone?
Right. That's so much fun. So all of this is happening in your sort of, well, for a year. And then you come back anyway. So now we're going to, I just had to bring up that little point because I think that's so fun and so cool of your parents. So now we're back to, we're going to jump back to 2020.
Right. 2020.
So it's the pandemic. You're taking a step back from counseling. And you are trying to find something to calm your mind, or you knew it was going to be needlepoint?
I knew it was going to be needlepoint. I had recently stitched a belt for my brother, a hobby belt, and that I designed and painted. And I knew it was going to be needlepoint. We were quarantining with Jess's family in Maine, which was also a gift because we spent so much time together that we never would have spent. And I needed something for me. I needed some quiet time. I needed an activity to do. And I found my needlepoint that had been tucked away in my little stash that has exponentially grown. I've also inherited two people's stashes. I've inherited Mopsy's stash. I've inherited my grandmother's stash. And I started stitching like crazy. I mean, I was stitching all the time.
So I forgot to ask, so did Mopsy kind of help you understand how to paint on canvas also?
Kind of. I don't remember ever being taught by Mopsy, but I remember being in her house and in her kind of craft space and seeing canvas and paints and all of that. So I definitely taught myself how to stitch on canvas, but I had been around it before.
Got it. So you pick up your stitching, and then were you inspired by that, or were you inspired because you saw different designs you wanted to do, or like how do we progress into having our own canvas line?
Story. My partner Jess is a sneakerhead, and she will tell you that during COVID, when sneakers would show up at the house, that I stopped commenting on how many sneakers were showing up. And this is at the same time that more needlepoint canvases are showing up at the house.
Was that retaliation? Just kidding. You don't have to answer that.
So Jess finally caught on to the fact that I wasn't commenting on these expensive sneakers showing up and that more needlepoint canvases were showing up. And so she finally asked Lucy, how much are needlepoint canvases? I was like, I'm busted.
You did not ask how much Air Force One, like specialty Air Force Ones are or anything like that.
No, I didn't, but I have an idea. So I was totally busted, and she sat me down and looked at me and was like, you studied art, you are an artist, you went to school for art, like you can do this, you know how to do this, it's in your family, like you can do this, like let's just try. And that's where it was born. I painted some keychains and little things for gifts.
Do you have any of your original, so you were just painting some one-offs?
One-offs.
Go ahead.
Yes. So my mother-in-law has a keychain that she still uses. My cousin still has a keychain she still uses. So I was painting one-offs, and I was painting things. My sister-in-law also stitches, and we were quarantined with my sister-in-law and brother-in-law and their 2 kids. And so I painted a couple things for her to stitch. And I was doing kind of all the COVID needlepoint zooms at the time. And so I was either painting on the zooms or stitching things that I had painted. And some people saw them and wanted them. Specifically, the High Class Place was my first design I ever sold.
We'll show that later. There's a design I told Lucy when she got here. I'm like, that canvas is staying here. It's going in my basement. And I forgot you said that was one of your very first. It was the first.
So the first I sold because I had painted that one for myself. I had seen an antique sign. It says, "This is a high class place, act respectable." I just loved the sentiment. And so I painted it for myself, and a handful of people saw it and wanted it, and that's where it took off. So I sold a couple to some friends who then encouraged me to keep going, and the line took off from there.
Gosh.
Yeah.
And so now you have, do you know how many designs you have total? I'm sorry. I always ask people that and they're like,
At the next market, I will have 125 designs.
Oh, good for you. And so that will be 3 years past sort of when you got started.
Yep.
So that's a lot.
Yeah, 125 designs of my own. We will have about 30 book canvas designs and 6 designs from Jenny Poland, another artist I represent.
Right. So first of all, I want to show you, she's got a couple things here that I'd like to show, but so when was it that you decided to add, because Lucy not only is I would call it like lead designer, head chick in charge, but also licenses some other artists through the line. And so there are 2 others now?
Yes.
So it's the book canvas?
The book canvas.
And
an artist by the name of Jenny Poland, who's a surface designer, and I take her work and translate it to needlepoint.
And there are just a few. Are there maybe 5 or 6 of them? Okay. The book canvases are smaller and more ornament size, and so there's more of those. But so we're sitting here staring at some of her designs, and I would love for you to show, because go ahead. I don't want you so talk about this one. The colors are amazing.
One of my original designs that I first put out. This is number 6 in all of them. I inherited Mopsey's stash, which included a lot of doodle canvases. So canvases that, were about this big, had just little stitches on them, or color theory, or a small piece of a design. And so this was one of the doodle canvases, but also I found a drawing of hers on graph paper with colored pencil with pretty much all of these colors. And it's like, I have to
honor her
and bring that forward. So this is one of my favorites.
What I like about these, well, it's a Bargello pattern. But what I like about it, so in theory, a person could grab a canvas and do a Bargello that looks very similar to that. Like Bargello is meaning like long straight stitches. But what you're able to do with Lucy's Bargello sort of patterns is stitch them all in 10 stitch. And look how pretty this is.
Yeah. So I just stitched this in a 10 stitch in basket weave. So you get the Bargello feel, but it's like a little bit more durable. You're not going to snag a stitch on an eyeglass case. So you get the idea of a Bargello, but the durability of a 10 stitch.
I love that. I think that's really fun. And I'm sure that she would be very pleased that those were part of the line. I asked Lucy, so I didn't know that the word Mopsey was her grandmother's name or grandmother name, or however we came about that, her nickname. But the design, the logo, I don't think we have anything with your logo on it. But anyway, so Lucy's, do you have a card here?
Yeah.
Here, I'm going to grab this because I want you all to see this, because I love when, it takes a village, I guess we'll say, right? Hold on. I'm going to hoist the large bag. So, it takes a village, especially a village of friends and family when you're starting a business. And I said, Lucy, this logo is so darling. Look at that.
Backwards, but.
And so she said that a friend of hers.
Yes. One of my longest friends, her name is Louisa. There's a canvas named after her, I'm good. Because Louisa says that often. She is a very talented graphic designer. She actually works on TV and film sets doing their graphic design. So if it's a historical piece, she'll make a newspaper or a magazine that looks exactly like from that time period.
Oh my gosh.
And so I asked her if she would help me create my logo. And we talked so briefly about the vibe of Mopsy and what I wanted for Mopsy Designs. And Louisa did this in watercolor really
Oh,
quickly. Like it came to me the next day and she was like, let's workshop it. And I was like, no, that's it. Like
awesome.
that's the logo.
It's bright, it's
So,
you, it's really cute.
So
And so, yeah, it's just darling.
brand,
It's just,
yeah.
I love that. So, there are a few things that I always love to ask people on the Pointing It Out
Sure.
podcast. So, I think we've talked mostly about how you learned to stitch and how you've gotten into it and your line, but I love to ask these questions: bestseller and worst seller. And I always get such a kick out of it. I don't know if anybody watching gets a kick out of it, but I definitely get a kick out of it. So, bestseller in the line.
I told my therapist about you.
Have y'all seen that one? It's so funny. And did that come from personal experience? Like somebody comes to you and says, I told my therapist about you. Or
So I wanted to do some sayings and I couldn't come up with all of them on my own. So I asked a lot of my dear friends what they would want on a needlepoint pillow. And many of them don't needlepoint. So they were like, I don't know.
what does that mean?
What does that mean? So I said, like, pick something that you feel like represents you. So a lot of my friends, there's one for my mom. The important women in my life have a saying. And so my friend Allie, I asked her, what would you want? And she said, I told my therapist about you. And she's actually studying to become a psychologist now, which is great.
I love that.
So yes, I told my therapist about you and Disco Lemonade, my first mandala.
Oh, so Lucy designs these mandalas. Can you tell me just really briefly? Mandala comes from
The Buddhist culture.
Buddhist. I was going to say Hindu or Buddhist. I couldn't
Mhm.
remember. So, and it's all about balance, right?
All about symmetry and balance in the round.
And so she's got these designs. If you're familiar, we don't have one of those here. We're not very organized this morning. And by the way, the volume around us has grown. And that's because we started this about 20 minutes late, because you all know how I roll.
We roll.
And so poor Lucy is just, we're here and there's a lot of people gathering in the shop. Excuse me. And so bear with us. We will plow through.
Yes,
Excuse me.
plowing through.
But anyway, so the mandalas have grown, and you've done, the first one was Disco Lemonade.
First one was just
There's
lemonade.
a Texas themed one. There's a Floridian one.
A ski themed one, butterflies, a kind of coastal New England, Maine themed one. I'm trying to do about 2 a year that are in the line, and then there are a lot of shops that have done exclusives for different
Which I
cities.
thought about, and I'm still
We're
pondering
mulling
it,
over.
but I'm trying to decide if an arch really
Mhm.
works on a mandala.
Yeah.
Anyway, but what I think is interesting about the mandalas is you said that it takes quite a bit of time.
Yes, they take about 6 months to put into production, and that does not include painting time. That's pretty much just all the designing time. Because I do a lot of it. I draw it by hand first. It's a lot of doodles. Then I draw the whole thing by hand on a piece of paper. Then I translate that stitch by stitch into a chart digitally. And then I will paint different icons and stitch them to make sure that they work at different 45-degree angles. And then I'll tweak the chart, and then it finally goes off to the painter.
I think that sometimes people don't think about this. I've had to explain this. I'm sorry, I'm going to digress for just a second, but I think people don't always understand this. So when a designer, I will just venture out to say a good designer designs needlepoint, they are often thinking about how a stitch goes from bottom left to upper right, because sometimes things connect or they don't, right? And so I think that your mandala illustrates the point that it has to be very well designed, because the items are turning all the way around. So if you stitch something here that's also going this way, it's going to look awkward if all those stitches are laying funny. So in other words, a needlepoint designer who has kind of a traditional sense about them will think about a person stitching something all in basket weave. Because the stitches go this way. It's probably registering backwards, but from lower left to upper right on the canvas. So I think I'm just trying to explain why she says 6 months, because truly the orientation of the designs being all turned around in a circle, but needing to kind of register all the same is what takes, I would imagine, the time.
Yes. And I want to make sure that someone I could stitch one of my mandalas in all basket weave, and Megan could stitch one of my mandalas in all decorative stitches, and that together they would look just as good, right? So
Right.
one could look great in basket weave and one could look great in decorative stitches. So I want the mandala to appeal to all stitchers, whether
Yep.
you're a decorative stitcher or a basket weave stitcher, and have it work, right? The icons should look the same, whether it's stitched in basket weave or stitched in fancy stitches.
And I have to say, I appreciate that because I do think that sometimes there's a vibe in the world that people think, well, I could design needlepoint. Anybody can design needlepoint. And it is very true. But the amount of thought and professionalism that goes into a lot of the designing of canvases is way deeper, I think, than what
I do,
an
yes.
average painter
And
stitcher
I will
understands.
own
So,
that when I started designing needlepoint, there was a learning curve of understanding that I really needed to work my brain and math. And my artistic background really plays into the designs now. Like I was not of the mindset that it was easy, but that I could do it
Yes.
more easily than I am doing it now.
That's right. That's right. I think that's important to think about, especially as any person in any industry, in any career progresses, experience is important. And we
Mhm.
learn from our mistakes and we move on and all the things.
Oh, there are lots
yeah,
of failed canvases that will
and-
never make it.
Yeah, exactly. Like not everything works for
Mhm.
sure. But what is working is the Bargello patterns. Show this one. You said this is one of
Oh
your
yeah,
favorites,
my
which is so
secret
funny.
favorites, the poppies. I know because like usually, I mean, like look at me. I'm color, I'm pattern, I'm
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
And this feels like one of maybe my more delicate or like reserved canvases.
It's beautiful.
But I just the simplicity of it, the whimsy. I stitched this all again on the basket weave. I'm a basket weave girl.
Same.
Yeah, this is one of my
Love it.
favorites.
What is on the opposite side of the spectrum of that though is this bright, beautiful bag strap. This is a big seller for us here in the shop.
It's a big seller for
Is that right?
Like Clubhouse rocks this design.
Well, it does go very nicely with our rainbow wall, I will
Yes.
say. So we've talked about bestsellers. Tell me about a dog, like a worse
seller.
a bad one that you just thought, I love this, but why does nobody else?
The mini stockings.
So okay, I know which one. So the mini stockings have that little
M. I am not a traditional Christmas girl. We don't decorate in red and green. We decorate in rainbow.
Oh, how fun.
And I wanted some Christmas decorations that were not traditional, but needlepoint. So I designed some mini stockings for myself and decided to add them to the line. And they are colorful and a little bohemian and maybe folky. They have color. The perfect background color for all of them is the silk and ivory sand.
Oh, good to know.
They stitch really quickly. So I thought that they would be hits for the non-traditional Christmas people, and they haven't been.
Well, maybe you all will check them out and decide that you can make them work for you.
Yeah.
So I always love asking that question because to me it's usually a surprise.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I guess we like to say around here there is a lid for every pot. So if someone says, "Oh, that's so not me," I'm like, "But it's somebody."
Yes.
So people need to check that out because I think they're darling. They're a good size, if I recall. And
they're perfect size for gift cards and things. Like,
oh,
yeah,
I love that.
you can put like a little trinket in there.
What else I love that I've seen people do with mini stockings, and now we're really getting off the rails, but this is what I do, is place settings. So like you could stick like a knife, fork, you know, like your service, at your table settings. I think that's kind of fun too. What have we missed here, Lucy? So we've talked about bestsellers, we've talked about not good sellers, we talked about how you got into the industry. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the needlepoint world at large that we haven't talked about? You know what I do want to bring up? I'm going to change it. I'm sorry. I gave you a chance to think and then I interrupted you.
Hey,
you do have a couple of designs that are support charities.
Yes.
Which I love a good canvas for a cause. We have some here at the clubhouse. Can you talk at all about those for us?
Sure. The Peace Round started out as a Charts for Charity, and it was so loved that I had it painted. The 30% of all proceeds, whether it's purchased through a shop or through me, are donated to SAGE, which is an organization that supports queer elders.
Okay.
Which queer elders right now in the world have few have children, so few have families, few are aging without family. Many are aging without families.
So
to
without
care for
elder
them.
support, sure.
So there are great organizations that support queer elders. So 30% of proceeds go to that. The gladiolus flower also.
So that one, to me, kind of looks like a bookmark.
Yeah,
It's a really beautiful flower in a straight line.
that's on 14 mesh. Proceeds go to women's health and reproductive rights. And then I have a bunch of charts for charity where 100% of the proceeds. My most recent charts for charity this winter, 100% of the proceeds went to the art van program, which is local to me in Maine, and it's a traveling art van that serves under-resourced communities in Maine with kind of art and art therapy.
That's important because I know a lot of kids can't access art because it's sort of the first program to
Get
go.
cut in schools, yeah.
And there's a lot of research that supports using both sides of your brain to be a healthy individual. And so I think that's a really cool, I didn't know there was such a thing as that. That's really neat. So good for you. So can people find those charts direct on your website?
Yes.
So is there like a button or something that says charts for charity?
I think if you go to shop and then there's charts and you'll find them there. If you search chart on my website too, it'll come up.
Awesome. Yay. I'm going to end by saying something, and I hope that this is okay. So I want you all to know that Lucy is a dear friend, a sweetheart, a beautiful designer, a daughter, a sister, a wife, all of these things. But Lucy also does a very beautiful job in our industry of representing a segment of our, how do I say this? A group of people who are underrepresented in our industry, which is the LGBTQ plus community. And that does not define you.
No,
and I know that.
Proudly serve that.
And I also, I'm sort of getting chills thinking about it, because I want to encourage people to find a person who represents a community that maybe you aren't as familiar with, that you want to learn more about, and a person that you trust to ask questions. Because I have asked Lucy a lot of questions about her space in this industry and how she feels being part of this industry. And I'm kind of tearing up because I really, really care about diversity in life.
Yes.
And I feel like our industry has, unfortunately, a lack of it in both LGBTQ plus, in gender, in race, culture, all the things. And so I want you to know how much I respect you and how much I appreciate you for being a person that I can go to and ask questions in a comfortable way. And I just want people to find that person in your own.
That person.
Thank you.
Seriously, if anyone has any, I mean, I can't answer anything for everybody. I can only speak from my experience, but I am happy to answer any questions, talk gender, talk sexuality, talk humanhood. I'm an open book. I'm here for questions. I'm here for open conversation because I am with you that I would like to see our industry grow and diversify and become an accepting, welcoming, lovely place that we already are, but just for more people. So I'm here for any and all conversation.
And I know that Lucy's much younger than me, but I think that my generation, older, my mother, my grandmother, that's not always a comfortable thing for people. We've grown in the space of communicating about these things. And I just appreciate and hope that if you're in a place where you're curious, you ask and you find a person that you trust to ask. So again, Lucy is a beautiful designer in person, but I just wanted to bring that up because I appreciate that about you. And I hope that we can continue to talk about those topics. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you for your time. Thank you to Lucy for her patience. As you all know, I'm usually late. I'm coming in hot.
We love it.
I don't have a list of questions prepared. I just want this to be raw, but also honest. And I think that it's better than just going through a list of
Hey, we
questions,
fly
but you
by
were
the
here
seat of
for
our
it and you
pants,
did a beautiful
yes.
job. So if you are here and if you've enjoyed this conversation, please feel free to scroll. We are now a couple of years into this and there are some really wonderful conversations
Yes.
with other
I
people.
watch all the time.
Yeah, and I even scroll down. I mean, we've been doing this for years and there's a lot of really cool information about people in our industry and not just designers, but also products. So, and if you've enjoyed this, there's a little button that says subscribe. It's a very easy thing to do, particularly if you have a Google account. You will get notifications, but you can set it up not to give you Google notifications. But it helps us to continue to get the word out and actually get more ideas from people and get more conversation going in the comments, etc., because this is a place that we hope to build community. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Lucy and I are going to get off and greet all of these fabulous people that are around us here at the clubhouse, and have a great weekend. And I guess that's it. We're going to sign off now.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, okay, bye guys.